Whether you can't get out of bed in the morning, your energy crashes throughout the day, or you're a biohacker looking to optimize your energy, productivity, and focus, this podcast is for you. I am Dr. Evan Hirsch, and I will be your host on your journey to resolving fatigue and optimizing your energy. And we'll be interviewing some of the top leaders in the world on fatigue resolution. Welcome. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode at the Fix Your Fatigue podcast, where we are on a mission to help a million leaders, executives, and everyday people take their energy to the next level so they can be more successful in life. So I'm really excited about today's topic because we're going to be talking about what happens when you get your energy back and you want to implement that into your career, on stage, in sales, whatever you're doing. How do you do that? So after people go through our program, this is one of the things that they can do. And this is part of our Energy for Leaders series. So I'm super excited about welcoming my friend, Marjo Hellman. So let's learn about Marjo. So she is an executive communication coach dedicated to helping you become the powerful leader you want to be. With her experience in TV news journalism, award-winning international communications, consulting, and performing on stage, executives get the skills and confidence that set them and their organizations apart. Marjo is the creator of the Magnetic Executive Signature Coaching Program that helps high-achieving executives become the #1 leaders in their field. Marjo's coaching clients include big Nordic financial institutions and banks, government agencies, and tech companies. She is a board member at Finland's biggest tennis club, HVS Tennis, and an advisory board member at the Finnish Tennis Association. Marjo's consulting work includes Finland Emojis, which is the most successful global PR campaign for Finland to date. Wow, that's big. Marjo's latest venture, Finnish Flow, coordinates the Finnish business community's presence at World Economic Forum Event Week in Davos. Marjo studied theater at University of Surrey in London and has lived abroad for more than 10 years. She now lives in Helsinki with her family and works globally with multinational companies. She believes magnetic communication is the make or break in your success. You can't sell your vision, ideas, or products without great communication. Marjo, thanks so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. So excited.
And so we're going to be talking about elevated energy, the key to magnetic stage presence. So let's talk about this. So why is energy so important for anyone hoping to convince others, sell anything, or make an impact?
If you think about any of those situations where you've been to see people who speak on stage or are presenting, or even actors or professional artists, would you like to see them lethargic, moping around, or would you like to see them energetic and you kind of get that elevated energy and you feel like, oh my God, you know, they are here for me. I'm really enjoying this air and energy. There's something really catchy. I want to listen to them. Which one would you like?
Energetic.
Yes, of course. Because we want to see people who are energetic, and we actually believe people who are energetic. There's something really catching about that kind of energy. So if we don't have that kind of energy when we are feeling, you know, sometimes we don't have that. It's human nature. It's typical. You don't always wake up with a spring in your step, and you're not always that happy first thing in the morning, for example. Mm-hmm. But you owe it to your audience if you are presenting, or if you're speaking, or you're on a stage, or you're trying to sell something. You owe it to your audience to have that kind of energy where they feel like, oh my God, she means business. She really cares about this situation. Because if you don't have energy, it kind of tells to the audience like, well, she's not prepared. Mm-hmm. She doesn't care about this situation enough to give us energy. So we don't want to put that kind of thought into people's heads. And we want to show that we actually care about this situation. We care about this audience. And we want to have that kind of energy that is very catchy.
Excellent. And so I wake up in the morning, let's say that I'm not up for, like before this podcast, you and I were speaking a little bit about this. So if I have stage fright, I get a little butterflies in my stomach, whether it's getting to be on Zoom or getting on a stage. How do I deal with that? How do I get my energy up?
First of all, you have to warm up your body. That's something that you do, and that's I was showing you before we actually push the record button. There are some warm-ups that you should do. Like every time you go on stage or you speak, you have your own podcast, you should do some warm-ups, especially if you're low in energy and you're having a crappy day or whatever. But you need to warm up your body, because when you do, you actually get that rush of energy. So you warm up your body, you do some exercise. For example, some people can do push-ups. You don't have to go that extreme. You can just, for example, you can just do some air boxing. You just imagine there's a boxing bag in front of you and do a little boxing. So you get nice movements around your shoulders and your upper body. So just do that kind of boxing thing. And that's when you get a bit of energy, when you're feeling a bit like and you don't have time to, let's say, run a marathon all of a sudden. So it's better to just do something at least to wake up your body. That's what you need to do. And the second thing is, when you've woken up your body, you also need to warm up your voice, because you have to remember that voice is a very important tool for us. It's actually part of this your expressions. Voice is also an expression, and if you don't warm it up, you're kind of scaling down on your expressions and how expressive you can be. So yes, you warm up your body, and that's how you get a bit of energy. And when you warm up your voice, you feel even more energetic. So voice is very connected to your body and how confident you're going to feel.
So
do you know any vocal exercises, by the way? Do you know how to warm up your voice?
I'm a singer, and so I do vocalizations, but I'm really curious about what you recommend. I'm actually having this conversation right now with my voice teacher, because I'm running out of my voice. I'll do a session with her, and by the end, my voice is kind of gravelly, and I'm trying to figure out how to make my voice, give it more stamina. So I'm curious about, how do you recommend warming up our voices?
Everything good always starts with good breathing. So even with your voice, and even when you're warming up your body, you have to also warm up your breathing. That's something I forgot when I talked about warming up. But breathing is the key to success when you're presenting, when you're speaking, when you're doing a podcast. So it starts with deep breathing, and when you breathe down to your belly, and you feel like if you put your hands so that they're touching your middle finger is pointing towards your belly button, and your thumbs are pointing towards your back, like the back. What are these called?
Ribs?
The bones. Ribs, yeah, the back ribs. So yeah, you put your hands there, and the right breathing technique is when you breathe in, you should feel that your arms are actually moving sideways, not upwards. So if they move sideways and your belly grows bigger, not very flattering, but it's necessary. So wear loose clothes when you're presenting. That's one tip. So yeah, so your belly should really inflate, like a balloon, and your fingers should move sideways. So that's how you breathe in properly. And breathing is also the key for really good voice. So you start with breathing. Breathe in, breathe out really deep. Do it 4 times. But also, you warm up the whole mouth area. Remember that your tongue is actually a big muscle. And sometimes, especially if your listeners might be changing, for example, changing between languages. You know, you might be speaking Spanish, and then the next 10 minutes you're speaking in English, and so on. So we have to remember that we also articulate with our mouths and with our tongue. So if we don't warm up the mouth area, switching between languages is actually more difficult, because we use different parts of our mouth to articulate. Spanish, like we have in Finland, we have it's like this, Mario, that's my name, and similar to Spanish. And it's very different to how I use my mouth and my expressions and my face or my muscles when I speak English. So that's why we also, when we warm up the tongue, we can just circle it around our mouth, like you can, it's like your tongue is touching around your teeth, like the outer sides of your your gums and your teeth. Circle around both sides, like both ways, and then do a little humming, and down, wherever you want to go, low, high, and try to keep your head still. Like if you're doing a lot of neck movement, that's not really good. You should keep your head still and try to have that voice, you know, all your the voice come out naturally. So just do these little exercises and warm up. When you warm up your mouth and you warm up your tongue, you can realize that the articulation is actually so much better, and the speaking is better, and also how your voice comes out is better. And when I started with breathing, you should also realize that when you are speaking, you have to think about projecting your voice. And this is what opera singers do. So don't just speak. For example, now I'm speaking to you and to the camera and to my speakerphones. But if I'm actually hoping to have that kind of energy and speak energetically, I need to think about beyond the camera. I'm actually speaking to the wall behind the camera, and I'm trying to project my voice. Instead of, I'm not shouting. Shouting is bad. It's bad for your vocal cords, and it tightens your throat area, and it's really bad. And that's when you get that kind of but when you breathe in properly and you do your vocal exercises, and then you project your voice and almost feel like you're throwing your voice to the back wall, that's when you're also projecting energy in your voice.
Excellent.
Just as a little tip.
That's really, yeah. And I'm so glad that you mentioned breathing as well, because, you know, by taking deep breaths, we're engaging the vagus nerve, we're shifting over into parasympathetic. So it actually makes us more relaxed before we go on stage, right? So, gosh, there's so many good tips in there. Thank you so much for sharing that. So in terms of being on Zoom now, where we're having a lot of our discussions, how do you project energy if you're not showing your video in some, like if in some certain circumstances where you don't have your video available? How do you project energy?
The first thing is your voice, like we just practiced. If you close your eyes and you hear someone's voice, and even if you don't see them, you can imagine, if you close your eyes and you really listen, you can hear if she's smiling, is she really serious, is she confident, is she shy, does she have energy? You can hear all sorts of things in just that person's voice. So that's the key. First of all, concentrate on your voice. You know, sometimes we have really bad connections and there's no video connection, even if we have the best intentions to have camera on and speak to each other like this. But sometimes connections are really bad and you have to switch off your video. And that's when you have to start concentrating on your voice. What kinds of feelings are you projecting through your voice? So really concentrate on that. The quality of your voice. Have a little, you know, a smile when you talk, because you can hear the smile. The other side can hear the smile. So you have a little smile on your face, Make sure you articulate properly. And one really good tip, and this goes for all speaking, remember to pause. And especially on Zoom, on video calls, pause is extremely important. And especially if we can't see each other. So if we just carry on like a tube train, it's not tube it's in London. What's it called?
Subway. Yeah.
Subway. Yeah. So, exactly. So if you're like a subway train, just carrying on like this, and you can't see each other, then it's kind of like, oh my God, is she ever going to stop? What? So you have to give your audience a break. Mm-hmm. They have to think about, process what you're saying, what you've just said. So you need to pause, give them a little break, a little breather to really think about what you've just said, and then carry on. So pause is basically one of the key tools that you have in your the pause is probably I would say the key problem solver to most situations where you can't see each other.
And I love the way that you use pauses. So you're really excellent example on this call of using them. And I think it's a good reminder for me as well, because I find that oftentimes I'm not breathing, and it's because I'm not pausing.
Yes, those two are related.
And there's probably other benefits to pausing as well. I notice that when you're pausing, I relax when I'm listening to you speak. There's something about it. There's something that's a little bit more dramatic. Like I can tell that you're a polished speaker when you pause. What is it about pausing that's like so helpful for either the speaker and the listener?
For a speaker, when I take a pause, it's an important time for me to actually think about what I'm going to say next. So especially for people who are worried about, oh my God, I'm going to forget what to say, and why do I always forget what I was going to say, and I've lost the plot, I don't know where I'm going next, or you have a complete blackout. Mm-hmm. When you have a pause and you make it a meaningful pause, like you meant it. I meant to be quiet. I was, this is a dramatic pause, even if it wasn't, but you can practice. This is something that you just practice. It comes easier when you practice meaningful pauses. So you pause and you look at your audience, and internally you might have in your brain this kind of, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm going to say next. But to the audience, they're like, that's very charismatic.
Right.
Because charismatic speakers know when to shut up. They don't just carry on all the time, but they take pauses. So yes, for you as a speaker, that's a really good time for you to just think about what you're going to say next. Breathe. And when you breathe, that's when you're relaxing your vocal cords, you're relaxing your body, and your voice comes out easier the next time you start speaking. And also breathing gives you oxygen, right? Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, when you stop for a little bit, you breathe a couple of times maybe. And I'll always say to speakers, take a glass of water with you, because that's also a good dramatic pause. You could be giving a TED talk and you go and have a sip of water. You think what you're going to say next. You breathe in. You look at your audience. Probably really connects with your audience. And then you start speaking. That's very dramatic, very effective. And it gives the audience a feeling that, oh my God, she's an excellent speaker. And she really is here with us. She is speaking to me. But if you just carry on all the time like this, really fast, and I just want to get out of here, make it quick. So, I just want to run. So that's, you're not giving anyone really anything. You're not really connecting with your audience. So pause and breathing is very important for connecting with your audience. And that's what all the successful, the most charismatic speakers, they always use pausing and breathing as one of the key elements in their speech.
Yeah, there's a tension. It causes you to lean in, and a curiosity around what's coming next.
Yes.
I remember a Native American quote that I had seen once upon a time, and I'm going to butcher it, but it was something to the effect of, most people think that something is happening when people are talking, but the reality is that things are really happening when people are quiet, when people are silent. And you just illustrated that very well.
And also something I learned when I did theatre, I studied theatre. You mentioned that in the beginning, but I really wanted to be an actress when I was younger. And so I studied theatre at university in London. And I remember one of the professors said, when we were doing an acting exercise on stage, and he said, Mario, what are you doing at the back? And I was like, because I was just, it was a crowd scene. The main actors were speaking at the front and I was at the back. And you think when you're at the back that everybody's looking at these people who are talking at the front of the stage. But in fact, people very often are paying attention to what's happening with the people who don't say anything. What are they doing? So he said, make sure that when you are, not doing anything, and you think you are not doing anything, you are actually doing a lot, and you have to start thinking about what is that nothing that you're meant to be doing. That nothing needs to be meaningful. You can't just stand there. But people are actually paying more attention to the people who don't speak than to the people who are speaking. And that really taught me a lesson, because I teach it even today to everyone who comes to my coaching programs, is that when you are quiet, you have power.
So we're just going to be quiet right now.
Yes, exactly.
I love that. Thank you.
Take a long, meaningful pause.
Long, meaningful pause.
About half an hour.
That's great. So you are the communications expert. And so what you're talking about kind of reminds me of the other things that we use to communicate besides words, right? So the physical body. So I noticed that you're standing.
Yeah.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about like nonverbal communication in terms of presenting and this sort of context?
Okay. Yeah. Around 70% of your communication is something other than speech. So 70% is actually, what you're communicating to the rest of the world. 70% is not what you're saying, but it's actually your body language, it's your expressions, and it's your voice, your tone of voice. And now when we're using these video call tools, Zooms and Teams and so on, we actually cut off a lot of this communication that we have. So we have these little antennas as people. We analyze people, we analyze each other within seconds of meeting each other. How does she walk? How does she carry herself? How does she breathe? How is she dressed? Is she tall? Is she short? Blah, 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 blah. And now when we are like this on a Zoom call, you can only see half of me, if that even. So a lot of that analysis that you would normally do is missing. So we can't really analyze each other, and we can't really get those little clues and hints that we normally would do through this video call. And so we're actually cutting off, and these are some new studies actually say that with these video calls, what's missing from our communication is around 90% of our expressions and of the whole communication power that we have. Wow. So it's only 10% that is the words and what we're saying. So for us, sometimes, when you have many Zoom calls or online meetings in a day, you feel exhausted. Like, why is this so tiring? I've been just sitting here and I've been staring at the camera and looking at these people and talking to them. But for some reason, it's so exhausting. Mm-hmm. And now we know why. Because we are not used to, we haven't had that genetic change or the evolution yet that lets us, pick up clues through camera like this. We need more. We need to see people in order to really communicate 100%. So that's so don't be so hard on yourself if you, at the end of the day, you're really exhausted, because it's just this, we're not used to, and we're not supposed to be analyzing and trying to pick up communication clues from that 10% from the words. We need more. We need to see people. So that's one of the reasons why body language is so important. So I always say to my clients, and what I try to do as well, you probably noticed that I speak with my hands quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And I also stand, because when I stand, I move a bit more naturally. So I give you more clues about, what kind of person I am. Mm. And I use my hands because that's more interesting for you to look at me as well and speak with me when you feel that, I have energy and I'm using my hands to point, certain important parts. I use them as part of my expression. So I'm trying to make you understand what I'm saying by giving you more clues about what I'm like, even though we can't see each other because we are like completely, other sides of the world. So that's my tip for everyone who's currently doing loads of online calls and struggling to maybe get their points across, is to concentrate on your tone of voice. What are you expressing with your voice? Mm-hmm. Use that as a tool. Use your hands more. Give more clues to the people who might be watching or seeing you through the camera lens. And also, if possible, stand. Because when you're standing up, your body moves more naturally. And your voice works better when you're standing up. And also what happens is that your thinking is clearer when you're standing up. So there's so many benefits to standing up. And also, because we're talking about energy, you have much more energy when you're standing up than if you're just slouching and sitting down.
Yeah, we're really not made for sitting. They say that sitting is the new smoking. When you take a look at the research, if you sit 8 hours a day, or maybe, if you sit 8 hours a day, then you're likely to die 3 years sooner.
Oh my goodness.
But also, if you stand, I think more than 5 hours a day, it's also not great. So you do have to do this flex and this movement, right? So that movement is the most important thing here, so that you're not just so rigid in one position, because the body likes to move.
Yes.
And so I would imagine movement is probably very helpful when you're giving presentations. Let's say if you're on stage, not so much. I mean, you're doing some movement. I really appreciate how you've kind of stepped back using the hands. But then on stage, when people pace, how do you balance like pacing with like purposeful movement?
I always say that pacing is not necessary. You don't have to have that kind of choreography when you necessarily pace, because for some people it doesn't work. You have to look into your strengths as a communicator. What kind of communicator are you? Do you like using your body? Is it essential for you to use your body so that you can think clearly and your voice works? And for some people, it's just impossible. They're like, oh my God, if I have to speak, no, I can't, no way. I'm just going to stand here. And you can still be a charismatic speaker, even if you're just standing there. But then you use your voice, you use those other tools, pauses, connection, really connect with your audience, look them in the eye, and continue speaking. And that's very powerful if you're just standing there to actually connect with the audience. That's probably even more important than having that kind of pacing around and here, I'm really relaxed and I'm pacing. But for some people it works. And especially if you have a really big stage and you have, for example, there's what we use nowadays a lot is like these big screens behind us, and there's lights and there's, maybe presentations and whatever. Then it might be a good idea if your audience is spread wide in front of the stage. It might be a good idea. It's actually good for the audience to see you close up. So that's when you can walk, because there is a purpose for your walk. There is a purpose. I'm coming to you now, Evan. I'm speaking to you now on this side of the stage. But the next points I'm actually going to make, and I'm going to go to the other side of the stage so that these people can also see me properly. And that's a service to the audience. So it always depends on the kind of stage that you're on, where your audience is located. Can you see them? Can you not see them? And also your particular style. What kind of a communicator are you? Does it come naturally for you to speak when you're walking, or would it be better for your concentration and for your focus and for really connecting with your audience to stand there?
So is this some of the work that you do with people? Tell me a little bit about how you work with people and implement some of these things.
I always start with people's strengths. I think when we work with our strengths instead of trying to fix the weaknesses, most people come to me, they're like, I'm not good at this, I suck at this. I get really nervous and I have this massive stage fright, and I'm not a good presenter and I'm not a good speaker. Or they're mostly leaders who are very experienced leaders and executives, and they have to speak a lot, and they do many media interviews. But then they struggle with, for example, self-confidence. That's quite surprising that so many leaders actually struggle with self-confidence. They appear confident, but they're not necessarily. And it's not, you don't always have to be that confident to be a great speaker, but you have to mean what you say. You have to have conviction. That's actually probably the better word. So we start with strengths. I analyze, I speak with them, we do some exercises, and I pick up on their clues, how they speak when they're just speaking normally to their friends and to me. What kind of communicators are they? And then when they're saying, I'm not good, I'm not a good communicator and I'm not a great speaker, and I can say that's crap, because now you've just you've just talked to me in a very nice way. You're very warm, very, very authentic. Your style is very, it's very natural, enthusiastic, and so on. So we start with that. What is your natural communication style? And then we start building on that. And also, it's always about when we go through this coaching program, it always goes back to messaging as well. You can be a great speaker, and you can be a great leader, but you also have to have that kind of crystal clear message that gets people on board, especially if you are, leading a big company. You might not have that kind of great tool set, communication set for your company messaging, for example. So because I'm an TV journalist and communication consultant, and spent so many years doing international communications and big campaigns. I also work with company messaging and what they actually want to say. What is the company purpose? What is this leader's purpose? What is your vision? How do you communicate that vision? So it's the substance, it's that there as well, and then bringing it up and make it public and present it to the world. So yeah, the substance, the messaging, and also how you present it and how you win people over and how you communicate your vision.
Sounds like a wonderful program. So, and I think one of the things that I saw on your website was integrating story into your messaging. I think it was the video that's on your website about how to have good Zoom meetings. And I think you talked about facts tell, but stories sell, right? And when we're talking about selling, I mean, you could be selling anybody an idea. You don't have to necessarily be selling a product, right? You're selling yourself oftentimes, in convincing others and whatnot. Can you talk a little bit about how story kind of plays a role into this?
We are natural storytellers. That's the oldest communication tool that humans have. You know, we've always been telling stories, and that's before we had mass media and before we had the news. We were telling stories. So it's a natural way for us to communicate and connect with each other. You know, even when we were still sitting by a fire and outside our caves, we told stories. You know, stories of lions and predators and so on, and they were also, you know, carried on from generation to generation, these kind of stories. And so storytelling is so ingrained in us, and many business people, they forget about this. You know, it's just like, oh, we have facts and we just tell the benefits and the solutions that we have, and that's it. But you're not really selling anything unless you know how to tell a story about the product or the service or yourself. What is your story? What is the most meaningful story to this audience at this moment? Because it's always about the audience. We have to remember this. Whenever we are communicating, it's never about us. It's always about the other person. It's about the audience. Even when I'm giving a speech, it's not about me. It's about the audience. What I'm serving the audience at this point. What do they need at this point? And with storytelling also, it's a great tool to really touch and make people feel something. You know, if I tell a really good story, and this is the most important thing that all presenters and performers should realize, that what is actually your main goal? It's to move something. It's to make people feel something. It's for them to do something or to think about something different. You know, it's about, you have to move those people somehow. And if you're just going on about facts and about how great you are, how great your company is, it's not really touching anyone. It's not touching us and at that kind of deep level when we feel connection. When we tell a story, you can be guaranteed to have people in the audience who are like, yep, I know how that feels. Yep, I've been there. Yep, I have the same experience. Yep. But if you don't tell stories, you can't build that kind of connection and trust. Stories also build trust. And I often say to people when, you know, especially in Finland, people tend to be a bit stern and they don't necessarily, you know, want to share so much about their feelings. And but I always say, like, when you meet someone for the first time, even in this kind of call setting, you know, video call, people tend to go like, okay, let's go straight to business and let's start. I'm just putting on my presentation here, and let's look at it, and that's it. It's like, you're not really building connections here. Instead, try to make people open up. Try to get them to tell a story. For example, what I usually say, like, today it's been snowing, it's been absolutely horrendous outside. It's been kind of wet, snow, sleet, icy roads. And I could say, who has fallen over this week in these icy roads when it's like deadly, it's so icy. And I guarantee you, there's one or two people who was like, oh my God, I fell over yesterday. I really hurt my head. And then there's the second person going, yeah, you know what happened to my daughter? She fell over. And, and it just carries on like that. And suddenly we are telling stories. Mm-hmm. So don't just go, even if you're in business, you're an executive, don't just go straight into, I'm this big leader and I go straight to carry on with my business. No, try to make people share stories, because that's when you're really connecting, and that builds trust. Especially if you're selling something, that's essential. Mm-hmm. Salespeople always forget to tell stories, but stories are the things that really sell, and facts are just facts, and they kind of bring kind of meat around those things that you're offering, and then the stories. But you can't just sell through just telling facts alone. You need the stories, and that's really the make or break.
Brilliant. And I think that you build culture with stories. One of the things that we do on our calls is that we always start off with gratitudes or what's going well. Right. And so by doing that, we're combining, I didn't even think about this until you mentioned it, we're combining story, because people are talking about what's going on in their lives that's going well. And then we're also creating a culture of gratitude, right? And also we're reprogramming our brains as part of our programs. So I so appreciate you bringing story into the mix. So where can people find you and learn more about what you're doing?
Well, first of all, I have my own website, that is marjohellman.com. So Mario, Marjo Hellman.com. So from there, and also you can find me on social media, like most people nowadays, on LinkedIn under the same name, and Instagram. And that's what I'm not that huge on Twitter, but I'm there as well, if that's your channel. But yeah, my website. And also LinkedIn is probably my main channel. So if you're there, then just send me a message and we can connect.
Excellent. We'll also put all of the links in the show notes and in the description box. And so if there was one thing, Marjo, that you could leave people with today in just one or two sentences, what would that be?
I'd say that you can't sell anything. Not your vision, not yourself, not your company, and not your products without magnetic communication. Magnetic communication is actually your number one tool for making a difference. So it's really worth investing in it and getting coaching in it and practicing it. Confidence. We always talk about confidence, and how do we get more confidence in speaking or as leaders? It's about practicing. You have to remember that confidence is a skill just like any other. It's like riding a bike. Confidence is not a trait. It's not like some people were just born confident and some people aren't. It's a skill. The more you practice, the more confident you will become.
Excellent. So important. Practice makes permanent, right? I was just talking about this with my 13-year-old. We need to, anything that we want to cultivate in our lives, we have to practice, right? And anything that we want to get better at, we need to hire a mentor. We've got, if you want to learn how to play piano, what do? You hire a piano teacher or a piano mentor, right? You want to learn how to become a better communicator for your business and speaking on stage, you hire Mario Hellman. So Mario, thank you so much for joining me here today. I so appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much, Evan. It was so much fun. And you have a great podcast, and I'm so happy to be a guest. Thank you so much.
I hope you learned something on today's podcast. If you did, please share it with your friends and family and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It's really helpful for getting this information out to more fatigued people who desperately need it. Sharing all the experts I know and love and the powerful tips I have on fatigue is one of my absolute favorite things to do. If you'd like more information, please sign up for my newsletter, where I share all important facts and information about fatigue, from the foods and supplements to the programs and products that I use personally and recommend to others so that they can live their best lives. Just go to fixyourfatigue.com/newsletter to sign up, and I will send you this great information. Thanks for being part of my community. Just a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. It is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. If you're looking for help with your fatigue, you can visit my website and work with us at fixyourfatigue.com. And remember, it's important that you have someone in your corner who is a credentialed healthcare professional to help you make changes. This is very important, especially when it comes to your health. Thanks for listening.